The trial of 3 Russians and 1 Ukrainian accused of murdering 298 people in the shooting down of the MH17 aircraft over eastern Ukraine has begun in the Netherlands.
The presiding judge, Hendrik Steenhuis, said the loss of so many lives and the manner in which they so abruptly ended is barely conceivable, as he opened the case on Monday at the Schiphol Judicial Complex, close to the airport from where the Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 took off for Kuala Lumpur on 17 July 2014.
The aircraft never reached its destination. It was shot down over the conflict zone in eastern Ukraine by a Buk anti-aircraft missile, killing everyone on board. The victims came from 17 countries. Most 193 people were Dutch nationals, alongside Malaysians, Australians, Indonesians and British citizens.
Especially for next of kin, this will be a very painful and emotional period, Steenhuis said as he opened proceedings by describing how Dutch criminal law treats defendants and victims.
After a painstaking international investigation, Dutch prosecutors alleged that 4 men had responsibility for the missile launch, the Russians Igor Girkin, Sergei Dubinsky and Oleg Palatov, as well as a Ukrainian, Leonid Karchenko. All were senior commanders in the Russian-backed Donetsk People's Republic, fighting Ukrainian forces.
Russia does not allow extradition of its citizens, and none of the men appeared in court on Monday. Palatov has appointed 2 Dutch lawyers, who first presented to the court in January. They have had but a brief space of time to prepare for this hearing, Steenhuis said.
9 lawyers have been hired to represent some of the victims and their families. They also have the right to speak in court, alongside public prosecutors and the defense.
The trial, which will also include testimony from the family of the victims, is expected to last several months. Lawyers will pore over a case file that already stands at 36,000 pages, as well as many digital pieces of evidence. So far, 49 relatives have said they wish to address the court and 82 will give written statements on how the death of their loved ones has affected their lives. More may decide to give written or oral statements.
Liz Mayne has written a statement describing how the death of her son Richard, a 20-year student at Leeds University on his way to Australia, has completely broken her family.
Richard's father, Simon, said Monday's court session is the beginning of a process that could last 30 years. He told The Guardian that the political state of Russia a decade in the future is unknowable. It is important to establish the facts now. The trial will reveal the chain of command right back to the Kremlin. That may one day become important.
As of Monday, 84 relatives have exercised their right under Dutch law to seek compensation.
Dutch prosecutor Ward Ferdinandus said the 4 defendants had noted with delight a plane had been shot down. We do not think that these defendants pressed the button that launched the Buk missile, he said. However, we do think that they played a significant coordinating role in the transportation and positioning of the Buk Telar and its removal back Russia, making them so closely involved that they can be held responsible under criminal law for the downing of flight MH17.
Ferdinandus said it was perfectly conceivable the men had intended to shoot a Ukrainian military jet, but that didn't exclude prosecution. They were not entitled to claim combat immunity, he added, as they were not regular military personnel. Whoever systematically violates humanitarian law cannot invoke it to their benefit in a criminal trial, he said.
Russia has always denied any involvement in the shooting down of the plane.
Last week, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, accused Dutch authorities of orchestrating a media campaign to compensate for gaps in the evidence and assembling facts to fit a predetermined verdict.
In 2016, the Dutch-led Joint Investigation Team, JIT, said it had found irrefutable evidence the Buk missile had been fired from a village under the control of pro-Russia rebels. The court is also expected to hear details of intercepted phone calls that show separatist leaders requesting help from senior Kremlin advisors, shortly before the downing of MH17.
The opening sessions will not get into these details, but will be devoted to what Steenhuis called, mapping out the current state of play.
In a statement before the opening session, the NATO Secretary-General, Jens Stoltenberg, described the trial as an important milestone in the efforts to ensure justice for the 298 victims and their families.
The EU foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, struck a similar note reflecting on the tragedy that caused the death of 298 innocent civilians and called on Russia to cooperate fully with the investigation.